up, we have somebody who is a software architect. They love creating side projects, and some of their side projects are used by tens of thousands of daily active users, like espanso.org. They enjoy publishing technical content on their blog and their YouTube channel. So please give a warm round of applause to Federico Terzi.
Hey everyone, is the mic working?
Yes.
1, 2, 3.
Mine is.
Working? Okay. So, hey everyone, today we're going to talk about AI, and in particular how the recent advancements in AI technologies are going to change the way we approach front-end development in the near future. Before we start, I'm Federico, I'm a software architect at Anima, and our mission is to automate as much as possible the boring parts of front-end development. And let's start with a story. So throughout my career, I worked for about a year as a front-end developer. And my day-to-day job involved many of the problems I'm sure you're all very familiar with, like interfacing with APIs, state management, performance optimizations. But there was one particular task that I found extremely tedious. When we had to implement a feature, a designer would come to me, usually with a design in Figma, and then basically ask me to make it happen. But before all the interesting parts, like implementing the functionality and the business logic, I had to start by taking the design and then painfully recreate it into code, with all the structure, CSS, components, and so on. And that was boring, tedious, and requires some back and forth between designers and developers. And being a very lazy developer myself, every time I have to do a boring task, often I ask myself, can we automate it? Can we turn a Figma design into somewhat production-ready React code automatically? And the answer is yes, kind of. There are many plugins and tools today that help you go from Figma designs to code automatically. And one of them, for example, is Anima. You can select a component inside Figma, and we generate React code with CSS. And then, of course, you can use it. You can start from there. There are many options. But the thing is, this is what state-of-the-art design to code looked like 2 years ago. And it worked, but there were a lot of practical problems when using it in production. One of them, in particular, is conventions. If you work with multiple teams and multiple companies, you know how diverse every team can be in terms of conventions. Someone might prefer some styling options like CSS modules. Some might prefer even entirely different frameworks. And so one of the things we set out to do was, can we create a system that generates code, but also generates code that follows your team conventions? And what I'm going to show you today is only made possible with the recent advancements in large language models. So first, I have a demo. Here is the same React card code we saw earlier, but with one key twist. Here we can ask the system to apply custom conventions. And so, for example, I might ask it to use regular functions instead of arrow functions. And then after a few seconds, my component is using regular functions. Or I could ask it to use ternary operators to define conditional nodes. And again, after a few seconds, we have it. And you can go crazy with it. I could even ask it to generate React Native code instead. And after a few seconds, all the divs, text, and styles have been made compatible with React Native. And think about it, you can gather a list of conventions that your team is okay with, and then from now on, you can generate code that follows those conventions and start from there instead than from scratch. But writing all those conventions can be boring, so there's also another possibility in those kind of systems. So here's a component in the Anima design system, and it follows a number of conventions, like it defines the display name, it uses CSS modules, it uses the class names package for conditional styling. And one thing you can do is you can drag the component into the system, and then the system will basically generate code that tries to resemble your conventions automatically. So you can see the display name, it's default exported, it uses CSS modules with SCSS, and a lot of other things. So is this code production ready? No. Of course, you as a developer will need to tune it, to refine it, to add the functionality, but imagine how much time you can save if instead of starting from scratch, you can start from a snippet of code that already follows your team conventions. And again, all of this is possible thanks to the recent advancements in large language models. And what we discussed so far was only one side of the equation, because we discussed how you can turn a Figma design into brand new React code. But that's not everything we do as front-end developers. Many times, what we need to do is updating existing components with the changes in a Figma design. And so the next question I have for you is, can AI help us in this context as well? So I prepared a small demo as well. Here I have a button in Figma. And here I have the corresponding React code with the JSX and the CSS. Now, let's pretend I'm a designer, and let's change this design. So I changed the border radius to 5, I changed the background color to red, and I also removed the icon. Then as a designer, I can click on Send Changes, and after a few seconds, the code is automatically updated to reflect those changes. So the icon has been removed from the JSX, and the CSS properties have been updated with the recent changes. And the first time I saw it, I was kind of mind blown. But the thing is, this system is versatile enough that it can work with any framework and styling convention, and it works on the other direction as well. So here, for example, I update the border radius property, and then the designer on the other side can click on Pull Changes, and after a few seconds, the border radius is updated. All of these automatically. And the technology is not yet there to make this fully production ready. But in a couple of years, you can all expect to have in our workflows some kind of automated agents that will automate some of these boring tasks. And even if they automate maybe 20 or 30% of those tedious PRs that we are all used to do, that means we'll have a much better ability to focus on the important things, like building features and delivering values to our users. So we are almost out of time. What I would like to say is AI is scary. I was scared as well when I first started to read about the new capabilities. But the truth is that we can't be scared about AI. The only way we can remain relevant in our job is to embrace it and try to understand how we can leverage it today and tomorrow to be more effective and more productive. With that being said, thank you very much for listening. Thank you. Thank you.